Welcome to the Jeremiah Show. There is a guitarist, rock god, whose name is whispered in certain circles. I think in hopes that he may appear, and whose reputation is respected and held high above all others. His name is whispered backstage in music clubs on each coast, and even in the small clubs in the land between. It's whispered by the late night DJs in radio booths across the country. His name is well known by session players and recording engineers, by music managers, producers, and AR people. He's known by fans that have followed his long, illustrious career, eagerly awaiting his next album or a single or his next appearance on a stage in front of them. Some people are just born with it. Some people know exactly who they are and exactly what they were meant to do. Some people look and have the air of a rock star without even trying. And if he walked by you, you would turn and look. He was born to perform. He was born to write striking lyrics, to tell electrifying stories with his guitar. His name is Robert LaRoche. Welcome to the Jeremiah Show, Robert.
Good afternoon. How are you?
I am good, my friend. It is good to see you. I've seen you on other shows, but you have not been on mine, and I'm feeling pretty good about that right now that I finally got you booked.
I'm happy to be with you today.
Yeah, great to see you. Tell me where you're at right now, because you're all over the place.
At the moment, I'm in Cape Cod, Massachusetts, about less than a mile from the beach, and I'm up here looking after my 92-year-old mom at the moment, taking care of my mom.
Do you mind if I say you're a good boy?
I'm doing the best I can. She was and still is a great mom, but she she deserves to be looked after.
Yeah. Well, it's great that she has you to be there for her, Robert. That's amazing. So I wanted to tell a real quick story about Patricia Vonne, who you know very well, obviously. So
Indeed.
Patricia was you guys are touring this summer. We're going to talk about that. You're coming to a town near you or me, and most importantly, selfishly, you're coming to a town near me. That's all I care about.
Los Angeles,
baby, and up in Solvang. I'm in Santa Barbara, so you're kind of I'm like right in the middle of both of those. So I'm gonna try to go see it both. But back to Patricia, she was on the show probably a few weeks back, 3 or 4 weeks back, and she told this story, and I wanted to repeat it because it struck me, and I've thought about it several times since. She told the story of how she moved to New York City, and I may have some of the facts wrong, so you can correct me if you like. But she moved to New York City to live with her older sister, Patricia Vonne. She was 19.
That's a truth. That's all true so far.
So far, I'm good.
Yeah.
As I set this up, if I remember right, she was 19. She's a bright-eyed kid, really. She came from a small Texas town. She had, I think, 9 brothers and sisters.
Yes.
New York, as she describes it, was this incredible new world of opportunity. And her sister worked at the iconic China Club. So if I got it right, I think it was her very first night, Patricia's very first night in New York City, and her sister asked her to come work with her. So Patricia became the coat check girl that night. Yes. And the way she told me the story, I can totally imagine her excitement as she's behind that counter that night, taking coats or checking coats. She was nervous and thrilled all at once, and she was so happy to be there. But then she says, all of a sudden, the first riffs of an electric guitar started playing throughout the club, and she froze, and it mesmerized her, and she was like caught up in the music's tractor beams. And she said to herself, that guy is going to make it. And it was you.
Okay. Okay. All right.
And she was right. She recalls that night. And I don't know, this is where I'm wondering if I've got this right, if I remember this right. But she said that that night she went up and told you that you were going to make it. And at that she didn't know, but you were being signed or wooed by John D. Nicola. Um,
Hmm.
did he have a record label at that time?
He didn't have a label yet, but he had a production company with another gentleman, great guy, Tommy Allen. They were a production team, and Tommy Allen was the booking agent at the China Club, and he was booking my band, the Size at the time, SIGHS,
Uh-huh.
from Holyoke, Massachusetts, my hometown, and we had started performing at the, as you mentioned, iconic. And it really was
Yeah.
a happening place back in the day. This would have been 1990. So we started playing the China Club in '89. And yeah, I met that. What the story you mentioned is true. And Patricia and I did meet.
What do you
Uh,
remember about that night
I
from
remember
your
a lot
side?
of, it's funny because my memory's not as good as it used to be, but I do remember a lot about that night because it was a fateful evening. I met her. It was July 17th,
Okay, I got that.
1990.
I was going to mention that. I've got that.
It was the
I
new
got that
music.
right.
It was an event called the New Music Seminar, which was a music festival with, venues all over Manhattan. Uh, it's not, they don't have that anymore. It's something like a South by Southwest,
Hmm.
which is still going on in Austin, meaning bands would come from all over America and abroad. And, you buy a pass or so, and you get to go in all these clubs. It was a big deal back 34 years ago. Actually, almost exactly 34 years ago. And so anyway, the Size were performing at the China Club, and so John D. Nicola. I met John also that same night, July 17th, and his partner Tommy Allen had sort of seen us and discovered us, I guess you could say, and then brought his partner John D. Nicola to see the Size that evening, and
Well, they were there to see you specifically.
they were there to see us, and we had gotten pretty good by then. We'd already been a band for, I don't know, 8 years or something, and we'd gotten better and better as the years went on. And by that time, we were firing on all cylinders. And we had a lot of good material, and so, and I'm sure we didn't sign a contract that night, but
So,
the relationship began with OMAD, Ordinary Madness. It stands for OMAD Productions, which at that time was these two gentlemen, Tommy Allen and John D. Nicola. And then I don't remember exactly when we signed a production deal with them. It wasn't too much longer after that, because then they took us in the studio and we recorded a bunch of songs, which they produced. And then they in turn shopped the band to major record labels in New York and Los Angeles. And we wound up signing with Virgin Records. They had a subsidiary, Charisma Records. And so we signed with Charisma Records, and the parent company was Virgin. And it all happened pretty quickly. In about a year from that first night, seeing the band at the China Club, first night meeting Patricia Vonne, it all happened that evening. And then 1 year later, we had a deal. We had a record deal, and shortly after that, I think August of '91, we were at A&M Studios in Hollywood on Sunset and La Brea, and we were recording our debut. John and
just
Tommy were still with us, of course, and they were associate producers because they, in turn, were friends with Ed Stasium, who actually lived around the corner in the West Village. It's funny, really.
so it's funny. Ed's been on the show as well.
Ed's the best, and
He's awesome,
he's awesome, and
legendary.
boy, he's got stories, and and so they knew Ed on a personal level. And so I think they went to the Virgin and said, yeah, well, Ed Stasium he's a friend. You can get Ed Stasium? Yeah, I mean, I know Ed. And so, yeah, if we can get Ed Stasium, let's get him. And one thing led to another. I didn't have it, the band didn't really have anything to do with that. We were just told at one point in the process, you're going to Los Angeles. We're getting you guys a condo in Sherman Oaks in the Valley. And oh, that sounds nice. And it has a hot tub and the gym and Ed Stasium from, the Ramones fame and of course many others is going to produce you guys. And we're like, oh, this all sounds, we were a lot
We
younger
made
and
it.
yeah, and I don't know. I mean, I can't speak for the other band members, but I mean, I wouldn't describe myself as sophisticated in the music business at that time. I was still pretty young and learning as I went along. And I had a penchant for partying back then. I didn't have a lot of discipline. So all I knew was, okay, we have an airline ticket and let's go make a record. So I didn't think that much about it then. All these years later, I look back on it, not often, but in situations like this, when you and I are speaking, when I think about it, it was really quite unusual that we actually got in the batter's box, so to speak.
Well, thinking about going back to that night, that time, that year, that magical year you get signed and all these great things start to happen in the record business, because you probably strive for that, even whether or not you ever admit that to yourself. You and the band, the size, you want to get there, right? Every band wants to get to be well known and to be listened to. But it doesn't happen. I don't think it happens the same way these days. I mean, I've talked to so many music producers who say, well, first you've got to take it as an artist now at least 40% of the way, if not more, meaning you've got to have all these followers. It feels clinical and it doesn't feel like art or music. First you've got to have these followers, then you've got to have these streams, and then all these different things that you do differently. You create your own music maybe off of your Mac computer. And in those days it was rock and roll. You're playing clubs for 8 years. You get a buzz, you get a big producer like John Nicola showing up at the club. You may or may not know that as you perform. You get invited to a booth, you get invited to conversations and meetings, and it flown out in a limo. It's magical in a way, like you'd imagine a rock star would be discovered, right? And now it feels so unpersonal. And I'm not bashing how it is these days, but it has changed a lot. So back to you and Patricia, because the reason I'm bringing, I want to just kind of follow up on this, is between the two of you're out here touring. You've played together. How long have you known each other? So January 17th, but I don't know if I know the date.
30, almost 34 years. 34 Today's years. What's the date today? The 10th of July.
Yeah, 9th
so of July. 9th of July. So yeah, we met on July 17th, 1990. So let's do the math. 30.
I can't do the math, years. But it's a long time.
No, it's 34 years. It'll be next week. Will be 34 years. Isn't
that amazing? I mean, there are not many. Not that you're a duo, but you know what I mean. There's musicians that have worked together that long and have still like outdo yourself. You're in your new album Forevermore, and Patricia's albums. You guys keep taking it to the next level, and I guess as a true artist, that's what's supposed to happen. But there's something special between you two. There's like an electricity, right? What
there is
that night? I mean, why do you think you're still working together 34 years later? It happened. It started right there. It sparked.
Well, I think, that you got to start with friendship, right? You got to start that we like each other and that we have such a long friendship, and we bounce off of each other creatively. When it comes to songwriting, we have a lot of co-writes, and of course, live performance. The art of performing live. There is a real chemistry between us, and there has been since her very first show was in 1998 at CBGB's on the Lower East Side of Manhattan on Bowery. Wow. And I already had
first show.
That was her first show, and I was as her Patricia Vonne fronting the band, and I was on guitar, and we had some other awesome musicians playing with us at that time. And so I knew, like, within the first 2 or 3 minutes of the first song, because we had done rehearsals preparing, and then we got booked at CB's. And I knew, like I said, I knew right away. First of all, she's had the place full, which was great. She had so many, a lot of friends and stuff. And I just knew. I said, this girl, this woman, of course, she was, we were both a lot younger back then. I said, this woman has really the X factor. She's got it. She's got what it takes to carry people's attention. And so, we just started from there. Yes. And, in full disclosure, we had a long personal relationship, of course, too. We were married for a long time. And, all I can say is that we're not anymore, and we haven't been for a long time, but the friendship remains, and the musical partnership remains, and the respect and love that we have for one another, because we were together for so many years as a couple. And now it's been many, many years as, more of just a musical team. And so it still works. And I guess that's why we're still working together.
Were
There's
there
a real
any
creative
hard
spark.
years when
There were,
when you broke, when you split and went different ways, or were you always, you respected the music first? You said we can,
right.
we can do this
Well,
together.
I mean, without going down a rabbit hole of recovery, I've been in recovery for a long time, and had addiction issues, and basically those addiction issues destroyed the marriage. But without going down that dark road, the simple answer is yes, there were definitely hard times. But like I said, I've been in recovery for a long time. It's just a one day at a time thing. I'm in a 12-step program. And so we were able to get the relationship back on track. And I'm very grateful for that. Very, very grateful. But there were some tough couple of years there, definitely.
Well, I'm glad that you guys did get back together. I think obviously what you have together creatively and on
Mm-hmm.
stage, and that whole dynamic was more important than and held it together, held you guys together. I'm glad that you are. And we're going to listen to some music right now, Roberts. We're going to
Mm-hmm.
go out with Forevermore. I thought we'd start
Okay.
at the title track of the album. Do you want to tell us anything about this song before we go to break?
That's sure. I mean, it's basically a love song. It's about my parents, my mom and dad. My dad's deceased now a little over 3 years, but it is about their 70-year love story, really. And it was New Year's Eve, the last day of the year 2020, and my dad was in the hospital in Massachusetts, in our hometown. Actually, it was in the next town in Springfield, Massachusetts, but same area, Western Mass. And it wasn't looking good for him to make it, to survive. And I was planning on going to visit my father. I think 3 or 4 days after the New Year, I had a plane ticket and ready to go, and he wasn't doing well. And my brother called me on New Year's Eve asking me, when's your flight? And I said, yeah, it's on the 3rd or the 4th. He said, no, you need to get here right away. So I said, okay, I understand. So I got off the phone with him, got on the phone with the airline, and I had a 7 a.m. flight for New Year's Day 21. And of course, thank God, I did get to see him, and I am thankful for that, and to spend time with him. And he passed away January 5th. But on that evening of New Year's Eve of 2020, of course, I knew already that he was not in good health, and I knew he was ready to meet his maker pretty soon. But that night, I wrote this song, Forevermore. I couldn't sleep. Obviously, I had a lot on my mind with going on with him, and also in my neighborhood in Austin, where I lived for over 20 years, predominantly Mexican American neighborhood. And there was all party mode and full on fireworks. It was loud as can be. And I love the neighborhood. It's a fun neighborhood. But that night, I had a lot on my mind, heavier stuff with my dad's imminent passing. And so I couldn't sleep anyway because there was firework gunshots going off in the neighborhood. And I said, yeah, this isn't going to work. And so I had this music just really like a gift came. Songwriting's not always like that. Sometimes you have to really work on songs for weeks, months, sometimes years. And this music just fell out of the sky, really did. And I wrote the song in an hour, and it became the title track. Yeah, and it's about my parents, because there's a line in there about my mom being, you walk on like the queen you are, head held high above the stars, because I knew she was about to go through a world of hurt, because that was her partner for 70 years. Imagine. So that's the background of that song.
It's beautiful. When I hear it, and I thought, because I listened a few different times this morning, and I thought it was a love song, just a beautiful love song. And now I didn't get the
Yeah.
I need to listen to it differently, but it is at the end of a love song, isn't it? For your
100%.
Yeah, it's a beautiful song. Well, I'm going to let you listen to it here while we go to break. It's Forever More. It's the title track for Robert LaRoche. It's his new album, Forevermore. It's long awaited. 10 songs on the CD. It's every song, one after another, is enjoyable and truly, really beautiful music. It's very it's a full album. It's a full experience. You take us everywhere. RobertLaRocheMusic.com. I'm going to spell LaRoche, LAROCHE, RobertLaRocheMusic.com. You can also find him and the album on omadrecords.com. So get your copy of Robert LaRoche's new album, Forevermore. Again, available on OMAD Records. Robert was previously the frontman for the power pop sensations The Size. Robert LaRoche brings us powerful new music as a solo artist, and with Forevermore, which is his second full-length release, he's created a tuneful travelogue through just about every romantic landscape human beings visit. He says of the album, love, loss, redemption, and most importantly, hope are the basic essence of these songs. Again, get your copy of Robert LaRoche's new album, Forevermore, available on OMAD Records. We'll be right back. Here's Forevermore.